What if I told you the world came closer to destruction during peace than in war? This is the story of two superpowers locked in a deadly embrace, fighting for dominance without firing a single bullet at each other directly. From Berlin to Cuba, from Vietnam to space, this is the entire history of the Cold War in 10 minutes. The Cold War didn't start with a bang. It started with a victory. In 1945, the world had just emerged from the ashes of World War II. The Nazis were defeated, but the alliance that won was already cracking. On one side, the United States, representing democracy and capitalism. On the other, the Soviet Union, led by Joseph Stalin, representing communism and authoritarianism. They had fought a common enemy, but now they were eyeing each other. Europe was divided like a cake at a tense birthday party. The western half leaned toward the eastern half, Soviet influence. And then came the Iron Curtain, a metaphor coined by Winston Churchill, warning the world that Europe was now split between freedom and control. The Cold War heated up fast. In 1948, the Soviets blocked West Berlin. Their goal? Squeeze out the Allies. The U responded with the Berlin airlift, dropping food, fuel, and supplies to the city for nearly a year. Think of it like Amazon Prime, but with B-29 bombers and a lot more tension. Then came NATO in 1949, a military alliance to protect the West. In response, the Soviets formed the Warsaw Pact. Nuclear weapons were the elephant in the room. The U dropped 2 on Japan in 1945, but by 1949, the Soviets had the bomb too. The world now had two superpowers with apocalyptic capabilities. One wrong move, and it was game over for humanity. The Cold War was never cold in the Third World. Instead of fighting each other directly, the U and USSR fought proxy wars, supporting opposing sides in regional conflicts. Korea, North invaded South. The U sent troops. China joined in. Vietnam, America backed the South. The Soviets backed the North. It became one of the bloodiest and most controversial wars in history. Meanwhile, spies were everywhere. CIA versus KGB. It was like James Bond in real life, but deadlier. Secrets were stolen, agents were flipped, and paranoia ruled the day. Even space became a battlefield. In 1957, the USSR launched Sputnik, the first satellite. America freaked out. So began the space race, culminating in 1969 when the U landed a man on the moon. A victory, watched by millions, and perhaps grudgingly, by the Kremlin too. October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was the closest the Cold War came to going nuclear. The Soviets installed missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida. President Kennedy demanded their removal. The world held its breath for 13 days. Soviet ships sailed toward AU. Naval blockade. One wrong move could have ended civilization. But diplomacy prevailed. The Soviets backed down. Secretly, the U agreed to remove missiles from Turkey. It was a silent handshake that saved the world. By the 1970s, both sides were tired. So began détente, a fancy French word meaning easing of tensions. Treaties were signed. Nuclear limits agreed upon. The world exhaled a little, but peace was temporary. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The U armed the Mujahideen, rebels who would one day become major global players themselves. And then came Reagan. President Ronald Reagan called the USSR the evil empire and ramped up defense spending. He introduced the Star Wars missile defense system, sci-fi style tech that terrified Soviet leaders. The arms race was back, but this time, the Soviets were running out of steam. By the late 1980s, the Soviet economy was collapsing. Enter Mikhail Gorbachev, a reformer. He introduced glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. But it was too late. In 1989, one by one, Eastern European nations overthrew communism. And then the Berlin Wall fell, a symbol of division, reduced to rubble. In 1991, the Soviet Union officially dissolved. After 46 years of tension, fear, and global chess playing, the Cold War was over. The Cold War never saw a direct battle between the U and the USSR, but its effects shaped the modern world. It was a war of ideology, espionage, and brinkmanship. And though it's over, its shadows still linger. Thanks for watching. If you found this fascinating, hit like, subscribe, and let us know which part of the Cold War you'd like to dive deeper into. Until next time, stay curious.